doing. So why are we entering into these relationships? Do you know that you have a soul contract with this person? Do you honor that soul contract with this person? And one of the downfalls that I see with a lot of specifically marital relationships is a lot of people go into it with this. Well, if it doesn't work out, we'll just get a divorce.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they write an out before it even begins.
But also they write an out before it begins. But are you also failing it before it even has a chance to?
Well, that's my whole point.
Yeah.
If you write yourself an out, then you just concede to the fact that, well, you know, like you said, I'll just defer to this, and it's not a big deal. I don't think very many people go in consciously thinking, I'll defer to this, although I think they hold that subconsciously as a possibility. And it goes back to what you have already mentioned. You know, you talk about soul contracts, but again, we have to go back to self-awareness. The Greeks used to have on the door of the Oracle of Delphi, know thyself. That's your first responsibility. Even when Christ talked about marriage in the Bible, he actually said it's better not to be married, because marriage is a very difficult thing. Marriage is where you're not looking at just yourself. You are looking to merge two spirits, two individual spirits, come together as one flesh, and to personify the light of the divine in one divine expression. There is a very sacred dance that must take place when you're coming together in marriage like that. And what is happening, instead of us coming together as a team and understanding that although we are two individual people and we must honor our individual soul contracts, that we also must honor the oneness of the new goal. Right? Which doesn't mean that you abandon yourself, but that there should be a complementary alignment. There should be a resonant agreement that is taking place in order to emanate the highest light in a one singular fashion, the light of the divine. You are that divine expression of unity, the highest expression of the sacred feminine and the divine masculine, made in perfection. That is the ultimate image of God. That is the ultimate image, because spirit has no gender. That is the perfection, the perfect balance of the divine masculine and the divine feminine. And feminine and masculine, which we will cover at a later date, does not mean male and female specifically. There's a greater concept that's happening there. But we do have to take responsibility for self first. If we're jumping into these relationships and we're not considering who we are first, then what we're getting is a lot of random results in how we interconnect. And, well, why is this happening? Well, he said this to me. Well, he's not paying attention to me. He won't take me out. She doesn't, understand me. All she does is nag. There are a lot of things that's going on. So you mentioned at the very beginning of this segment, drama. The way that I view the dramas, drama is not necessarily a bad thing per se. I look at this as the same way I do as negative and positive, as appropriation. We don't want to act on the dramas personally for ourselves, but when a drama has been brought into our experience, how we responsibly react, or what I like to separate this, so let me go back and rephrase that. We can either react, which is without conscious thought, without conscious connection, or we can respond, which is with conscious connection and with conscious thought. So how do we engage that? If you're already in a relationship, your job is going to be harder, because you now have to not only work on yourself, if you haven't already done this, if you haven't done this on the front end, now you have to work on yourself and work in congruency with that relationship simultaneously. Christ said that it's better not to marry, but if basically, your emotions get the best of you and your flesh is becoming very present and you want to make that connection, then it is better to marry. To not basically break laws and to create greater dynamics. What's happening in our expression today in our current society, and you can speak to this, is the sexuality is very loose. There's no understanding that when you actually come together sexually, whether you are saying you're married or not, you are marrying that person through sacred contract, because there's sex is synergistic energy exchange. You are And women have their yoni is a gateway.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you allow a
Receptor.
to come into that gateway and lock energies,
Yeah.
there is a energetic download that is happening. There is a transparent relationship that you've agreed to have. Now you have your karmic field, that is the karmic data that is in your auric field, has now overlaid into the person that you've agreed to. So now everybody that you have had a relationship with sexually, you're now carrying their karmic charge. So when
I think that's why it's called intercourse too.
Mm-hmm.
People don't understand that. You're actually entering into, it's an intercoursing that is happening. And so, this revelation came to me many, many years ago, but people got to figure this one out for themselves because, they're pretty much going based on the feeling and everything feels good. So you get all caught up in it. And like you said, we don't think about what it is that we're doing. Just feels good or going with the flesh at the moment. But I like what you said. I want to go back to what you said about not knowing yourself and not understanding yourself. And I wasn't sure if this was going to come up today, but I want us to touch on this now. When you are not able to give to yourself, you automatically look to someone else or to the outside to give to you. And so here and then we have this dynamic in relationships where people say, I need you, or you complete me. And
isn't that so romantic?
No,
I'm joking.
Not at all. And the whole thing with the I need you, I have an issue with that. And I like to say in my relationship, I don't need you. I want you, which to me has more value.
Absolutely.
I'm making a decision. I'm making a very conscious choice that I want to cohabitate with you. I want to connect with you. I want to be in this relationship with you. Because the whole thing of I need you is a lie anyway. Because if the person walks out the door, you're going to continue to function unless you decide that you're going to give up on life in that moment.
And a lot of people do. Let's not ignore that fact.
A lot of people do. But again, that's a choice. But it goes back to not really knowing yourself, not valuing yourself.
But you don't value yourself because you don't understand that you're a sacred being.
Right.
You don't really grasp just how beautiful and profound and how magnificent you are and what your journey here is about. The reason we make so many of the bad decisions that we make, or I'm going to say lesser choices that we make that don't serve our higher goals, is because we are literally in a state of amnesia to what our true identity is.
Well, there's no self-worth. You don't value the worth, like you said, of who you are. So therefore you deem yourself unworthy. And one of the unfortunate things with a lot of relationships of intimacy, women specifically, attach themselves to these relationships that they know is not valuable. It's really not giving anything to them. It's a lot of taking. They're giving a lot, but it's because they feel like they really don't feel like they deserve this person. They really don't feel like they deserve to be in this relationship. So they're willing to put up and shut up, and be in all this pain and misery and feel like they need this relationship to the point where if this relationship ends, then they decide that they no longer want to live or they no longer, can live. I personally know of a situation right now, and, it tears my heart up that, this young lady is in this relationship with this person who does not value them, calls them everything but a child of God, demeans them, demoralizes them, disrespects them. And for some reason, they feel like they need this connection. And, we see a lot of it. And a lot of young girls are, getting themselves in these situations that, is really painful to watch from the outside.
Absolutely.
But on the flip side of that, Nye, one of the things that I have come to understand and appreciate with regards to our journey and our pathway is if we have contracted to be in this particular relationship at this particular time for a specific reason with regards to the evolution of our soul, then do we say that, well, like we say with other things, all things do happen for a reason, and this particular relationship is serving a purpose and is for a particular reason?
Well, absolutely. It's going to serve a higher purpose regardless, because there is no failure in the divine plan.
Right.
But as we have discussed, there are much smoother roads that we can travel in order to facilitate that truth. So whether you want to, go through remedial classes and, repeat the grade a few times before you graduate, that's up to you.
Yeah.
And so it's, do you want to focus on co-creation? Do you want to dance with what is available, which puts you in classes that are for the gifted and that are above average for the general course? Do you want to not pay attention? Do you want to disengage and thus lose a lot of the curriculum that's being provided for you to kind of interact with and train under? And so you end up in a remedial class or end up failing that class and repeating that class. So the choice is yours. You will graduate eventually, but if you want to graduate at 15 or whether you want to graduate at 110, that is up to you.
So hence, is this why the repeating of the cycles? Because you didn't get it. So you need to repeat it in order to move on. So I love the way you brought that right back to where we started, the repeating of the cycles. And so even like with baggages that you're carrying around, it's like you said, we have choices in everything. So you're going to continue to carry this thing that is heavy, that is no longer serving you, that is really not going to help you to get to the next class. It's going to slow you down from getting to the next destination where you have to be, or are you going to continue to carry it? And so then in that, I want to ask the question, is it possible to leave the past behind? Because, there's this saying, I'm a firm believer in forgiveness. Forgiveness is so important, and a lot of people feel like when they forgive, it's something that they're doing for the other person. When you forgive, it's not something you're doing for the other person.
It's for yourself.
Strictly for yourself that you're forgiving. But a lot of people will say, I forgive, but I don't forget. So are you really forgiving? Are you really leaving the past behind? Because like we talked about last week, it's the intention behind what you're saying. So what I believe a lot of people their meaning and their intention when they say that is, I'm going to forgive you, but I don't want you to think I'm going to forget it. And next time something happens, I'm going to remember this same thing. So is that true forgiveness? Is that true moving on? Or is that remaining in the past, trying to have one foot behind you as you try to take one step forward?
Well, two things. I'm going to answer that first, but then I also want to go back to the carrying of the past, and are we able to let things go? Mm-hmm. So the first thing is forgiving and forgetting. Forgiveness, there's levels to forgiveness, just like there's levels to grief. Mm-hmm. And so there is a level of forgiveness where you do hold and you haven't gotten to the point where you can forget. Mm-hmm. The moment of forgetting is the last cycle of forgiveness, which is where you have truly allowed the medicinal energies of the forgiveness itself to transmute and to heal whatever was there. In the healing, there is an amnesia. And the reason that the amnesia happens, meaning there's no reason to hold that memory, is because when you truly forgive, it means you've moved into a place of trust. When you've moved into a place of trust, you're saying that I am allowing the divine process. I am acknowledging what that soul needed, how it served me, and that we're now ready to move on. Mm-hmm. Whether or not you actually, participate with this person actively or directly in your life right now is irrelevant. It's just a way that you kind of engage that energy. Right. You have to allow an alchemical process. There's an alchemy that happens in forgiveness. So the last cycle of forgiveness does create what is seemingly amnesia. We don't hold it because that energy no longer serves us, and there's no need for you to protect yourself when you understand that the divine process is serving you. You only put up a protection when there is a sense of resistance or a need or a sense of lack and fear that you have to put up barriers for yourself. When you move into that place of faith in the divine, The amnesia is perfection, because there's no need for you to do that again. And even if you were to experience that same thing again, it would happen in a different way. It would happen at a different level. You know how we complete a class and we may build on the class that we just had? You know, you move up to a higher level of math and it seems to be repeating some of that, but then it's expressing itself at a higher level. As is the things that we move through with the lessons in our life. There's a lesson in every lesson. And we can either look at it as a curse, or we can look at it as a blessing. A blessing and a curse is the exact same energy, flipped. If you don't understand, it becomes your burden.
That's right.
Once you understand and appreciate, it becomes your blessing. And it's your freedom.
Absolutely.
It frees you.